Avatar program run out of Eglin Air Force Base, Lieutenant General Steven Kwast was informed about some of the advanced tech in the US and China, especially when it comes to China's development of a secret space navy. Interview with Congressman Eric Burleson describes the bureaucratic hurdles that had to be overcome in gaining the approval for David Grush to become a senior advisor in his office. A Cambridge-led team of scientists have discovered biosignatures in the atmosphere of a planet discovered in the Leo constellation. These stories and more on Exopolitics Today, the Week in Review.
You're listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Welcome everyone to this April 19 edition of Exopolitics Today, the Week in Review. As I'm sure many of you are aware, I have not been able to do these weeks in review or interviews for some time, and that is due to illness. And I recently went to the hospital for a second time, and so I want to share some of the things that happened, some of the synchronicities, and what I think may be going on with this health issue that I have. Now, I came back just last week from a second hospital stay where I spent 5 days being tested and evaluated. They told me that I have a cardiac condition due to a staph infection that impacted one of the heart valves. That was something that was also brought up in the first hospital stay, but this one was focused on that at a specialist hospital. So the long-term prognosis, according to the cardiac specialists, is surgery. So I'm not very enthused by that, as I'm sure many of you would not be as well. So I will be pursuing alternatives and self-healing in the months ahead. So this is going to impact my research in my choice of guests and topics for my Exopolitics Today podcast and future webinars. As you can probably imagine, Will be more interested or open to alternative health modalities and presenting this to you and what I will be discovering in my research. So in the past, I speculated that I was poisoned in some way. I've had quite a few people contact me, psychics, intuitive contactees, whistleblowers, that have said that, yes, I was poisoned. So what really strengthens this is that really in something that really shocked me was that JP admitted himself to a hospital where he was diagnosed with a very similar condition to my own and was in hospital at the same time. You know, JP's only a young man. He's 39, I'm 66. So, was this sheer coincidence? Or were we simultaneously targeted for our collaboration? I mean, JP's been putting out a lot of explosive material, and more recently he's named some of the military bases where he worked out of. So did something trigger this? So my view is that both JP and I were targets for some psychotronic weapons or poisoning technology that was used against us to silence, intimidate, or neutralize us. And I remember JP warning me back in September 2024 at the GSIC conference in Westminster, Colorado, about the danger of being poisoned and saying some of the precautions that I should be taken. So he'd been forewarned by military white hats about danger of being poisoned and had given me a heads up that, I should take precautions as well. I'm sorry to say I really didn't take any precautions. I just was, I guess, a little too cocky, a little skeptical that something like that would happen to me. And so I didn't take precautions. And lo and behold, at the conference and subsequently, I did experience a deterioration in my health. Thankfully, my voice has returned, so I'm really grateful about that. It's been a few months since I've been able to talk without a cough, so it's great to be able to talk again without that kind of interruption. So, I want to thank everyone that sent me prayers and well wishes, and that's going to be helping me with alternative and self-healing options. A lot of people have excellent suggestions that I will be exploring. So I want to show appreciation for everything that you've done, especially for my Patreon supporters. I mean, they really have stuck through with me. I really appreciate everything that the Patreon supporters have done to support me through this difficult time. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you all. So today I got a message, a very disturbing message from a fellow UFO researcher who was responding to my and JP's possible poisoning. So he wrote this in his email, and I won't identify him because he hasn't given me permission to do so, but this is what he wrote. Quote, "In 2009, I got some mystery disease that affected me quite badly. On the Open Minds forum, I received a personal message from a new anonymous user, and the message was in Chinese. He said that he had worked on classified projects in the UK and US that dealt with creating targeted infections that were custom designed using DNA to disable people. It doesn't kill them, but it makes it harder for them to function and drastically cuts the hours per day they can be effective. The infections are airborne that can be released in the vicinity of the target. He apologized, saying that he found out that I had been targeted like that and that this was what caused the internal infections I was experiencing. A check of the IP address of the anonymous sender revealed he lived in the same neighborhood as Arthur Newman did." End quote. So what my fellow researcher did really kind of fits with what has happened with me and JP. This hasn't killed us, but it's definitely slowed us down and made us much more ineffective because we have to spend a lot of the day now just resting. And so I can't do the kind of normal research I normally do and the output that I do. So, and it also makes a lot of sense what my fellow researcher was told, given what the 1976 Church Commission revealed about the CIA developing a poison gun that could transmit all kinds of viruses, bacteria, poisons, and so forth that could kill people. But after this was revealed, Congress passed legislation banning these kinds of assassination weapons. But it's easy to understand how some of these systems, delivery systems, would be or could be or were watered down to debilitate or slow down rather than kill. So let me play a short clip from the about the CIA's dart gun.
Also, I had to find, one time they wanted me to find out if there was such a thing as a poison that was undetectable, especially one that seemed to mimic a heart attack, that would kill someone, but it would appear that they had a heart attack. I did find such a thing.
Does this pistol fire the dart?
Yes, it does, Mr. Chairman, and a special one was developed which potentially would be able to enter the target without perception.
The poison was frozen into some sort of dart, and then it was shot at very high speed into the person. So when it reached the person, it would melt inside them, and the only thing would be like one little tiny red dot on their body, which was hard to detect. There wouldn't be a needle left or anything like that in the person.
But also the toxin itself would not appear in the autopsy?
Yes, so that there was no way of perceiving that the target was hit.
Okay, so that is what I believe it was a former CIA operative talking about this poison dart gun that could be used to fire a poison infection into people And of course, there's also that other alternative that my fellow UFO researcher raised, that they could literally just release something in the vicinity of the target that would do this kind of poisoning that would debilitate and slow down researchers. So I believe pretty firmly that this is what has happened to me and has happened to JP. And so, just so you're all familiar with my circumstances and why it is sometimes I may miss things or delay and have to reschedule things, because I am having to deal with some pretty serious health issues. But I will keep you posted, and I definitely plan to continue doing these updates. So let me now switch over to a update from JP, and this update concerns the U.S. Air Force's Avatar program. Now, JP has named the base where he largely operated out of, and I visited that base in 2022, I believe, 22 or 23, with my wife, and JP showed us around, showed us where he met with a senior officer who would give him the green light to talk or not. So here we have JP describing this Avatar program out of Eglin Air Force Base. That literally he was summoned to go to the base. He went into a facility, and he describes seeing these soldiers all lined up in these kind of bed-like or structures hooked into computer interfaces, and that they were plugged into avatars on distant planets or moons, and that this was a way in which the secret space program, the Air Force's secret space program, could utilize personnel. So the Avatar program, he said that it also operates out of two other bases that he has served on, one being, oh, no, he hasn't served on MacDill, but he says, I have one at MacDill, and then he said there's one at Nasquetas Naval Base in, I believe it's Mississippi or Louisiana. So I can't remember that. All right, so JP says that these are Avatar programs that are run out of Air Force Base facilities, I imagine, and the Navy has their own. I did mention Nasquetas in, I believe, Mississippi as being a place where they have this kind of Avatar program. So there you have it. I mean, it's not just a matter of sending personnel for the secret space program to distant planets or moons using advanced spacecraft. They also have this Avatar program where they could transfer the consciousness of the soldier to another soldier and have that soldier operate and do whatever is needed there using an avatar body. I mean, that obviously has some advantages. I mean, using avatars means that you don't have to go to the trouble of kind of like transporting a soldier from Earth to some planet or moon in the kind of outer regions of our solar system or elsewhere. And also a level of safety as well. If something were to happen to that avatar, okay, you lose an avatar body, and I assume these are clones, but at least the original, the person, the soldier, with all the knowledge and skills that he has. And let's keep in mind that these covert operatives that are part of these programs, they're highly trained specialists, and it takes quite some time to get people up to speed for this. So certainly having this kind of level of safety, I'm sure, is very good for the Air Force and different and the Navy and any other services that use these kinds of programs. So there's an Avatar program that is functioning across several bases. Okay, now here I want to talk about this 3.5-hour interview with Dr. Steven Greer by Jesse Michaels. I mean, Michaels has been doing some really impressive interviews lately, and this one with Steven Greer really was excellent. Now, Greer, in my opinion, when it comes to the operations of the deep state and the secret manufacturing of anti-gravity spacecraft since the 1950s, I think he's head and shoulders above any other researcher that I have come across or watched. His detailed knowledge of major deep state, political, military, economic figures involved in the UFO cover-up is the most detailed and accurate explanation of what's been happening. So in this regard, Greer's analysis is outstanding. Greer is, I think, correct that the current crop of major UFO whistleblowers and researchers, and here we're talking about people like Luis Elizondo, David Grush, who are being promoted by the mainstream press and the US Congress, are spreading half-truths when it comes to UFOs, not being secretly built by Lockheed's, Lockheed Skunk Works, Raytheon example, Raytheon, etc. So, for example, Greer says that the famous 2004 Tic Tac incident involved a reverse-engineered spacecraft rather than extraterrestrials. Now, Elizondo, David Grush, they're on the record for saying that they don't know what these UFOs are, that there have been crash retrieval operations, corporations have been involved in studying and reverse engineering those, but as far as they are aware, none of these reverse engineering programs have been successful. So when you see a UFO up in the sky, it's more than likely that it's a extraterrestrial spacecraft, because we haven't yet been successful in reverse engineering that. Well, yeah, that, according to Greer, and I agree with him, is a half-truth, really it's a lie, but if people don't know, if they're not informed, they're not informed. Whereas Greer says that these reverse engineering programs go back into the early 1950s, and it was around the mid-1950s that the first reverse engineered spacecraft were developed and started to be used. Now, Greer does have an Achilles heel, and that's always been his claim, that there is no evidence of negative extraterrestrials interacting with humanity. He cites a few whistleblowers who have confided that an official deep state program to create program life forms that are used in fake abductions or MyLabs is the truth behind the abduction phenomenon. Now, I believe these MyLabs using program life forms do exist. They are very real. But I disagree with Greer that they are what is behind the abduction phenomenon. Instead, they are used to muddy the waters over what's really happening on the alien abduction contact front. So I think alien abductions or contacts have been happening for many, many decades, going back to at least the 1950s, if not earlier, and that these programs using program life forms, which is like a grey extraterrestrial that's been reverse engineered, operating out of secret anti-gravity vehicles, did eventually get developed and have been used in my labs. But this is done to muddy the waters. In other words, prevent people from concluding that extraterrestrials are visiting us and contacting us, whether it's through the voluntary contacts or whether it's through the involuntary abductions. Now, there's been an evolution in Greer's thinking about negative non-human intelligence. He now claims or asserts that there's interdimensional life forms, demons, goblins, shades, any kind of negative interdimensional you can think of, that do all these negative, dark things on humanity. So he identifies three fundamental forces behind the UFO phenomenon. Extraterrestrials who are exclusively non-violent and positive. He's always said that. Second, deep state programs using anti-gravity technology that are very negative and malicious. And finally, three, interdimensionals that have both positive and negative factions that interact with humanity. So that's been an evolution in his thoughts. So now some of these negative kind of like experiences people have had with allegedly extraterrestrials, Greer will say, no, that's not an extraterrestrial. You're probably confused with a interdimensional, a goblin, demon, shade, whatever you want to call it. But overall, the Greer-Michaels interview, it goes for over 3.5 hours. It's well worth the time investment due to Greer's overall analysis of the deep state and history of reverse-engineered anti-gravity spacecraft. Okay, so here's a story about the US Space Force that US Space Force that's prioritizing alliances between the US and allied nations when it comes to collective defense in space and exploration. So this is where the Space Force is really pushing these international partnerships to create an integrated space military under US leadership. And currently this is called Operation Olympic Defender. And there are a number of nations that are a part of that all have space programs. Olympic Defender includes the Five Eyes countries, that's Australia, US, Canada, Britain, and New Zealand, along with France and Germany. And I believe Japan has also recently signed on or is being integrated or has observer status with Operation Olympic Defender. So that's a name to remember, because that is, I think, the framework or the organization used for different countries' military commands to integrate with the Space Force and developing an international alliance, which in future will evolve into a modern-day Starfleet with anti-gravity spacecraft, transmedium drones, etc. So this is coming. This modern-day Starfleet involving an international alliance headed by the US is forming right in front of our eyes. But at the moment, it is only using publicly known technologies. Behind the scenes, classified propulsion technologies like anti-gravity, torsion field propulsion systems, avatars are being used. But as far as the general public is concerned, it's all SpaceX rockets and Starship rockets and so forth that are going to be part of this Operation Olympic Defender. But that will change quite dramatically. All right, here's something very interesting that when I saw this CIA file that was recently being cited in a tabloid, I kind of agreed with John Greenwald about why is this released now, and he goes into the history of this document that was first released 25 years ago. And he says it's derived from a newspaper article that was associated with a newspaper article collected by the FBIS, which I believe was a Soviet collection agency or news collection agency. Okay, I'm sorry. That's mistaken. That the FBIS is an office within the CIA that monitored, translated, and analyzed foreign media broadcasts for intelligence purposes. So this was a newspaper article that had been cited or sourced by the Soviet KGB, and that this FBIS kind of monitored it and translated it, and it talked about some really kind of strange stuff. It talked about these aliens that were very aggressive towards a contingent of soldiers, and that there was a fight. Technology, destructive technology, was used by the aliens that turned the soldiers into limestone blocks. Yeah, so that, I mean, that sounds preposterous. It sounds like, okay, is this was this part of Soviet KGB propaganda to hide the truth about Soviet UFO encounters? Because we know that they date into the 1940s and 50s, that the Soviets have had their own encounters with UFOs, and just to kind of like muddy the waters, prevent US monitoring agencies from knowing what's going on, they put out the occasional propaganda. So is that what was happening here? Or is there some truth to this alleged attack where a contingent of Soviet soldiers were attacked by these aliens, and who then, in response to the kind of rifle fire and weapons being used by the soldiers, turned the soldiers into limestone blocks? Now, this to me sounds like, or echoes, what we read in the Bible about Sodom and Gomorrah, where you had people being turned into into kind of like sandstone. So, okay, so is that possible? I mean, I thought that was very interesting, and so is there an element of truth to this story? Okay, so now I want to shift to a Lieutenant General Steven Kwast, who has been a big supporter of Space Force, and was originally thought that he would be the first head of Space Force, and that instead turned out to be a General Raymond. Now the person in charge of Space Force is General Chance Saltzman. So anyway, Lieutenant General Kwast, he's been informed about some of the advanced classified technology that both the US and China possesses, and has spoken about that even recently. But he's particularly concerned about China's secret space navy, that China's developing a space navy with destroyers, and supply vessels, carriers, and so forth, and that this has been something that is of great concern. And this is something that's Lieutenant General Steven Kwast. So this is what he's been saying about some of the advanced technologies that are being used. And President Donald Trump also said something in a similar vein. So Trump says we have weapons and technologies the public has never heard of. So this is kind of like something that Steven Kwast has talked about in the past. And so this article here that I'm linking to is something that does give you a few more details. So this is Sonny's Journal. And just go to this article titled, Trump says we have weapons and technologies the public has never heard of. Okay, so now I want to respond to this particular tweet from Representative Eric Burleson, who says that David Grush has provided the House Oversight Committee with the names of 20 officials that are read into classified programs. What Representative Burleson said was he gave us an indication of which ones will be hostile and which ones will not. Some people we may have to subpoena. So this is, I think, a fascinating development that the House Oversight Committee has the names of 20 officials who I think, well, almost certainly, you can take it for granted actually, have signed non-disclosure agreements concerning the classified UFO programs that they've been involved in. So how will the House Oversight Committee compel these officials to spill the beans on what they have worked on? So that'll be very interesting to see. So there's also an interview with Congressman Burleson, which gives more details about what David Grush has informed the members of the US Congress about recently. And he describes, in the interview, Eric Burleson describes the bureaucratic hurdles that had to be overcome in gaining approval for David Grush to become a senior advisor in his office. In other words, there was bureaucratic pushback against granting David Grush security clearances so he could begin a position in the office of Eric Burleson as a senior advisor. So people in the bureaucracy and presumably associated with the UFO programs don't want Grush to be given security clearances because he knows too much and he's talking about things and he's talking to Congress, members of Congress, in a way that is informing them about what's really going on. So Burleson, based on the information that Grush and others have told him, stated his firm belief that a UFO crash retrieval program does exist and that corporations in the intel community is hiding the truth about these and secret reverse engineering programs related to those recoveries. So that's been a very important evolution over the last, I guess, half dozen years, that more and more members of Congress are now coming around and saying, yes, these UFO crashes, it's not just a question of are UFOs real? It's like, okay, they've been crashing, they've been retrieved, corporations are working on reverse engineering these advanced technologies. We want to know about these programs. So there's been quite an evolution in the US Congress, and that there's quite a few members of Congress, such as Eric Burleson, Tim Burchett, and Anna Luna, who've been pushing for the truth to emerge and further congressional UFO hearings to be held. So this is where we get into this list of 20 public corporate officials who are read into the UFO crash retrieval program. Burleson describes how the list involves both hostile and non-hostile witnesses, some of whom may need to be subpoenaed and compelled to testify. And as I said, well, how do you compel someone to testify if they've signed a non-disclosure agreement about the material to be testified and they're hostile witnesses? That's going to be very interesting, how Congress handles that. Could there be some surprises? Definitely. But this seems to be the next step by Congress, kind of like doing these debriefings of these public corporate officials and seeing who is willing to testify before Congress about what they experienced. So Burleson next describes in the interview how the reinstatement of Grush's security clearance is vital for him debriefing members of Congress in a sensitive compartmented information facility. If you remember the first hearing, congressional hearing that David Grush appeared in, and that I think was July of 2023, he said that there was a lot more information he could share in terms of names of corporations and individuals involved in these reverse engineering programs with captured UFOs, but he could only do it in a SCIF. That's a sensitive compartment information facility. And because his security clearance was withdrawn, there was no way for members of Congress to hear from Grush about what he knew, the names of the corporations and the witnesses and so forth. So this is why Burleson's appointment of Grush as a senior advisor and Grush getting a security clearance means that members of Congress will finally be able to go into a SCIF facility and hear for the first time from David Grush about the names, the corporations, the individuals that are involved in these secret reverse engineering programs. So here's an informative roundtable discussion about the upcoming Galactic Spiritual Informers Conference Connection in Eastbourne, England on May 10 to 11. I couldn't make it because of my health issues last week, but I will be presenting on the topic of taking whistleblowers seriously, where I review how whistleblowers have transitioned from being dismissed to now appearing before the US Congress. And I also discuss how JP fits into the pool of emerging whistleblower testimonies. So this is something you can watch on Danny Henderson's website. So you've got Danny Henderson, Tony Rodriguez, JP, Elena Denan. Sorry, I'm having a kind of, let's see the names, just Nikki Allen, and also Hugh Newman, who are going to be speaking at the conference, as will I, and that's going to be at Eastbourne from April 10 to 11. So I hope you can make it. I am looking forward to giving my presentation because I think it really does show how things have evolved to the present point with the whistleblower phenomenon finally being taken seriously. Okay, so here's another interview. Well, it's actually not an interview. It's a discussion, a presentation by Jesse Michaels on the role of Henry Kissinger in managing the UFO issue. So his interview really has, or his presentation, or let me play the first minute of it for you so you can get an idea of what he discusses in his presentation.
A meaningful part in bringing about the death of over 100,000 people and the injury of a comparable number, you don't think of that with ease.
The whole point of the doomsday machine is lost if you keep it a secret. Why didn't you tell the world, eh?
On the 19th of May, 1953, something extraordinary happened in the Nevada desert. A new kind of nuclear bomb, codenamed Harry, was detonated at the Nevada test site. It unleashed 32 kilotons of energy.
Okay, so that's just the introduction to the presentation by Jesse Michaels, and that begins with the development of atomic weapons and the connection to UFOs, and that's when Henry Kissinger comes in. And what Jesse Michaels discusses is Kissinger's long career that began in US Army counterintelligence, how he was involved in the debriefing of captured German scientists, very likely saw some of the advanced technologies that the Germans had developed, and then went over to Harvard University where he got some advanced degrees, a tenured position, but also got to liaise with some very powerful people concerning the management of UFOs. So Kissinger was eventually involved in some organizations, some called the Majestic 12 Group, Psychological Strategy Board, the Operations Coordination Board, PI 40, and other organizations. So I think Michaels does a really good job in presenting that information of Henry Kissinger. Now, just to, I guess, show that this information is not new, that it's been around for some time now, I talked about Henry Kissinger and his role in the UFO management of the UFO cover-up back in July 4, 2003. So there is a paper on my website, and I'm going to see if I can find that for you, where I discuss the political management of the extraterrestrial presence. So I'm going to just kind of go down here a little bit, and I do discuss Henry Kissinger in here. So this was something written in 2003 where I talk about Henry Kissinger and his role with US counterintelligence and management of the UFO issue. So the section is titled "The Prominence of Henry Kissinger as PI-40's Master Strategy." Well, PI-40 was a group within the National Security Council, and that was connected with the Majestic 12 group. So it's quite a long section, and I cover a lot of the points that Jesse Michaels covered 20 years later. But I do like the fact that Jesse Michaels has... Oops. Okay, so here's, just for those, I didn't start sharing this tab. So here's where I introduced the section on the prominence of Henry Kissinger as PI-40's master strategy, where I discuss a lot of of Kissinger's role in various committees, in debriefing German scientists, counterintelligence, and so forth. So this is just to, I guess, show that this information about Henry Kissinger has been around for some time, and there have been quite a few researchers, including myself, that have talked about it. Okay, so here's a major announcement. A Cambridge University-led team of scientists have discovered biosignatures in the atmosphere of a planet in the Leo constellation. The two gases detected by the James Webb Space Telescope are only known to be produced by living organisms, such as marine microbes and phytoplankton. Now, the Cambridge-led team is taking a kind of cautious approach, saying that on the one hand, these organisms or these gases that have been detected, I think the quantity that was discovered was significantly more than what currently exists on Earth. So whatever is producing these gases, presumably microbes, such as marine microbes or phytoplankton, there's a lot of it on this planet in the Leo constellation. But then they kind of take a cautious approach and say that there's a possibility that the gases may have been created by an unknown natural process. So this is just an example of how the James Webb Telescope can be used in detecting biosignatures or technosignatures in, well, actually, I think the James Webb Space Telescope is going to be more focused on biosignatures. I don't know if it actually does detect technosignatures, but nevertheless, it can be used in the confirmation of life on distant exoplanets. And so this is something that it's a major announcement, even though they haven't said with 100% certainty that this is conclusive evidence of life on a distant exoplanet. I guess they are very confident that it is, but it's not conclusive yet. Okay, so here is some comments by Michael Kratsius, the new head of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, that discloses the existence of classified technologies that can manipulate space and time. So this is pretty important. I mean, here you have the chief advisor to Donald Trump when it comes to science and technology, Michael Kratsius, saying that there exist technologies that can manipulate space-time. So this is something that in my Secret Space Program book series I have been talking about for some time now, that you can go all the way back to Nazi Germany, and it was the discovery of these technologies, or the development of technologies that could alter space-time, that led to the development of this German secret space program, or the Dark Fleet, or Nachtwaffen, as some call it. So Trump himself has disclosed the existence of classified weapons that can quickly defeat any major adversary. We discussed that a little bit more. So it will be interesting to know if Elon Musk has been read in on such advanced technologies and whether it would play a role in bringing them out in open source literature or the world, disclosing these to the world. So Musk is very close to Trump. I presume he has a good relationship with Michael Kratsios, given that Office of Science and Technology is very close to Musk's interests in space colonization and the development of spacecraft for colonization efforts that eventually Musk will be, I think, given some information about these kinds of technologies, especially ones that manipulate space-time, and whether that can be used for developing new generation of spacecraft that can make colonization of planets in our solar system or even distant solar systems feasible or not. So that's it for today's edition of Exopolitics Today, the Week in Review. I want to let you know that I do plan to resume the monthly briefings that have been in the past used for my Patreon members and anyone else in the general public. But for Patreon members at the second tier of membership, I did plan to do these monthly briefings on a regular basis, every month at least, or bi-monthly at least. But because of my illness, I wasn't able to do that. But I do plan to resume in 2 weeks' time. So that would be around April, let's say, that would be May 1st, I believe, May 1st. So I will put out an announcement concerning that. I think May 1st or 2nd, I will put out an announcement about that monthly briefing. And again, to all the Patreon members that have been supporting me, I thank you very much. And thank you for your patience. But the next monthly briefing should be delivered on time by May 2nd in 2 weeks' time. So thank you and aloha.
You have been listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Salla. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.